Hello and greetings to our friends up in Canada. Mark Wolf here with Virtual Thursday, our third edition, 2020-3. And today we will be reviewing the Ontario Standard Incident Reporting System, Ontario SIRS. And on board with me today is James Angerett, regional trainer. I got Greg Simmons, regional trainer out there, and Tom Lewis, our enterprise training manager, and Mike Reynolds, who's our onboarding specialist. We all had a little bit of time today, so we're all sitting in on this. And we welcome everybody. If you have some questions today, please put them into the chat. We'll get to them all. We have a small group with us today, so we'll be able to get to all of them, and since we have a small manageable group, we might even be able to turn on your microphone if you have that, and we can talk back and forth. We just please ask you to stay on topic today. Training opportunities. We have our virtual Thursdays like this. They're free to attend them. We are typically planning to provide them twice a month now. The first one will be on the first Thursday at 1100 hours Pacific time, and our third Thursday is specifically for our Canadian customers at 1100 hours Pacific time. Please adjust that time to your local time zone, and you'll see those advertised at the top of your homepage dashboard in what we call the in-system announcements. We'll usually put a slide on your login page to give you information about that, and also we do publish those on our social media pages. Online training is available. We typically provide that in 3-hour blocks. That is a paid service, and we can customize those sessions to meet your needs. And we're doing quite a bit of that right now because of all the COVID travel restrictions that we are seeing. We do provide on-site trainings. Again, right now, most of those are on hold because of travel restrictions. And additionally, we do provide regional training academies. Now, we've had some significant issues with the COVID travel restrictions. However, we do have 2 that are scheduled currently out in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, June 8th through 10. Charlotte, North Carolina, August 3rd through the 5th. And we are actually also planning a virtual online training academy that we're planning on having 2 of those, a entry-level virtual online training academy and then an advanced online training academy. Those are going to be scheduled tentatively for sometime in May and June this year. And we may be adjusting some other RTAs that we've had to cancel back into later in the year. More information will be forthcoming as soon as we know it. You can go to emergencyreporting.eventbrite.com to learn more and to register for those. Also, you can go to our marketing page, emergencyreporting.com, or we do have a Canadian marketing page, emergencyreporting.ca, that you can go to. Go into the Customer Success Training and Learning Center. You can learn more about our training offerings, our regional training academy specifically, or email us at training@emergencyreporting.com. And without further ado, we are going to go ahead and jump right on into the session today. And I am in our training and testing account for Ontario right now. And today, again, we're going to be reviewing the Ontario incident reporting. So we're just going to go ahead and jump into incidents. We've actually done quite a bit of work with our what we're calling Ontario incidents right now to give you some more features, doing some hardening in it and updates as we go through this process. We still have a little bit more to go, but it is very functional right now, and we're going to go through that, and we're going to specifically talk about some of the improvements that we have put into the system in the recent couple months. So first of all, this is our grid. Now to us, this looks a little bit different because you guys are on our V6 architecture grid. We'll talk about this first. Is your grid is sorted not by the incident number, but I'm going to move to the second column from the left, the date and time column, and the most recent incident will be at the top of that page. But you do see in the column all the way to the left, the incident number will be displayed there. And the date and time is exactly that, the date of the incident with the alarm time. Our station and dispatch number can be and will be displayed in the column here In the center, to the right of that, we have the incident type and the address, the location of the incident that will be displayed there, and the status of the incident will be displayed in the column to the right. We do have several different statuses of incidents to talk about. First is incomplete. And you see that we have an incident here that is marked as incomplete. It's got the red lock that's unlocked, and it's pretty simply states incomplete with it. I don't have any that are in complete status on here right now, so let's do this. I will just go into this one and we will unlock it and go back out to the grid. And you can see a completed incident is represented by the yellow or orangish colored lock and states complete. And then a reviewed incident has the green lock that is locked. There are certain permissions for actually like entering, completing, and reviewing incident reports that after we kind of look at the grid here for a little bit, we're going to jump into the admin module and talk about those briefly. Typically, when you go into the incidents module, you're going to be defaulted to the grid view. And if you have the mapping on your account, which most of our Canadian customers at this point do, you can switch to that map view. And in this particular case, we'll see some incidents out here on the map as long as they render correctly. And we have these kind of all over the place in Ontario. Just a few people that have put them in. And you can see down here by St. Thomas, a good friend of mine lives down that way. Let me slide this over and we'll zoom in on that a little bit. And you can see that's what our heat mapping looks like for an incident. Right there, we'll get this little dot. And if you have a bunch of incidents in a small area, you'll see that that will actually turn reddish in there, and it may be freeform kind of for a group of incidents in that particular area. And that is the heat map. We can turn off the heat map, and the incidents then will be illustrated by the icons here. Any fire-coded incident will have the red triangle. Any EMS incident type will be displayed by the star of life, and then any other type of incident will be represented by the green dot. If you have hydrants and occupancies in your system and also stations, which you will have, you can check those, and they will also be displayed on this particular map. Now this particular account, I believe everything is located up in Kitchener. So that's why my stations are not displaying in here. But if I select that little icon, the dot for the incident, my basic incident information is available. And I have my date and time, the incident number, the incident type, and the address of it. And we can actually jump right into that incident by selecting edit. And it takes us to the summary or exposure view of the incident right here. And these are all the pages that have been completed. So that's a little bit about the grid. Now, a few more things about the grid. We do have the ability to do some searching and also some filtering on the grid. So if I need a specific incident, and there's just a handful in this particular account, again, but if I need one, if I know the incident number, we have to put in the year of the incident with a hyphen first. Put that in and press enter, and you'll see that the grid will filter by that and display that by that's a simple search. Let's go ahead and remove that information. And we can also filter by the dates here. So we're going to scroll back into July of 2020 as my start date and my end date. I'm just simply going there because we have a number of incidents in July, so we can filter by date in that particular date range that we put up. Let's go ahead and clear them out. There is a clear search parameters link over on the right. Now, station dispatch, there's no functionality with that right now, but the incident type and address. Also with that, now on this, eventually we're going to have some additional search parameters that you'll be able to put in part of the text of an address in here and filter the grid by that, and our status. So we can take them and let's say we only want to look at the incomplete incidents, filter it by the status. Complete incidents and reviewed incidents. Just like that. We already switched between the grid view and the map view. And let's go and display all. And up in the actions, advanced search is available. So we can put in our start and end range, incident number, status, display only your incidents, the ones that are assigned to you, and we'll show you about that in a little bit. Shift, we can filter by apparatus, dispatch run number, and stations in this particular list. So in this case, I'll just pick, I want to see the calls that are listed in my station, Fire Hall 2, apply that search, and we've gone ahead and filtered that list with our advanced search up here. And this is one area where we will be adding some additional search features to the advanced search in the future. As you can see on this particular page, we do have a send feedback button in the upper right hand corner here. So if you notice something in here that you would like to see changed or updated, please send us that feedback and we can take a look at that. That feedback that you enter there goes directly to our development team that works on this particular project. So if you have a CAD link in your particular case, your incidents are going to get generated automatically from the CAD link. I do not have that on this particular account, so we don't have any CAD fed incidents in here. However, when we do create them, you'll typically not see an incident type on here, but you will be able to find the address or the location of the incident, and also the date and time will be displayed here. So it's fairly simple. If your incident is perhaps this one that you need to do, just find it based on the date and time of it, the location of it, select the edit pencil, and you'll go right into that incident report. And a lot of information will be filled in for you automatically from the CAD data. Just to illustrate some of those pages that you get the CAD data from is you can come to Basic Info 1, the Basic Info 3 page, which is our addressing information. I'll select that down at this. Let me get this one here. Okay, so that's been completed. Let me switch down to my exposure here. So the Basic Info 3 page, which is our location information, most of this information on this page does get inputted from the CAD. And the other place that we get a lot of CAD data to come into an incident report is on the Basic Info 4 page, which is our apparatus, personnel, and times. So you would have your apparatus that responded in the call down here. Move that out with the unit number and the appropriate times inputted here from the CAD data. Other than that, we need to manually create an incident. So we're going to go ahead and start with the incident. I'll point out to you as we go along some of the additional features that we've inputted into here and built for you. We'll select this button up in the upper left, New Incident, and we will end up on the Basic Info 1 page. Your FDID number will be displayed here. And there's 2 numbers at the extension of that will also be displayed. Those are all put into the system when they build the account, so those should display automatically for you. Your station, that is typically what we want to put into that particular field is what station's responsibility is that particular location. Even if units came from a different station or fire hall to it, we generally speaking want to pick the one that has the first due, is what we call it, responsibility. Your shift or platoon, which comes from your administration module. When you build them back there, then you have the ability to pick them in here. Some simple terminology. You may use different terminology than that. You can build those accordingly. So your date, quick pick buttons for today or yesterday. Simple as that to put them in. Our incident number will build automatically the year for you based upon the date we put it in. And we can do a couple things here for the incident number. We can type one in if we have it. This simple text entry, or we can use the next ID, that link will put the next incident number for that particular year in. And what the system will do for that number, if you use that next ID link, it will go out into your grid for that particular year and look for the largest number and add one to it. And that's how it develops the incident number here. So if you have something kind of, let's call it wonky going on, where you have a number that's grossly out of sequence for you. You may have had someone put an incident number in out of sequence somewhere else in your grid, and you'll have to go take a look for it, and you might have to adjust that if you want them in sequence like that. The dispatch run number on this particular page is typically what I refer to here as a call for service number, typically generated by your CAD system, and it may be kind of long, especially if you have an agency that has your CAD agency or dispatcher has multiple agencies that they dispatch from, not only fire departments, but law enforcement and EMS. Now, some of the fields that we have on this page is response type and our aid given or received. Now, this is one of the changes, this aid given or received. First of all, this was actually optional information prior to now. Now we have it, it'll default to required information. You can see that illustrated by the red asterisk behind the field name here, and will be pre-filled for not applicable. So if you did not respond mutual aid, leave it alone. But if you responded to either a mutual aid call, an automatic aid call, or to an area with a fire protection agreement, select the appropriate selection there. Now, right above that, our response type. We have a long list. This is a coding list that we have inputted. And one thing that I'll point out now is all these coding lists in Ontario SIRS has a number that precedes the actual text for that particular entry. This is one of the recent updates, was these were made consistent from that design document into the whole entire system on all the different pages. So you'll see those, and you can pick the correct code. Now, if you know the term of the code or the code number, such as 35, it will find that, it will search through that field and filter it to that text, and you can then select it and put it into that particular field. Another way that we can do this is using our category, searching from the category. So the categories are broke down into this case, a fire response, property fires and explosions. So you either have your choice of fire or explosion here, a fire response, outdoor no loss, outdoor fire, and then we have all the non-fire call types, which are broken down into individual sections. And when we see the blue text here, we can just go ahead and select them. As I'm going down through this list, you can see how this trees down through, and our medical and resuscitator calls are down towards the bottom of that list, and then other responses. But we can tree down through this using the pathway system like I just did. Let me go ahead and cancel that operation, and we're going to remove this text here. Let's put that in. Now, an easy way to do this, in addition to typing in part of the text of the code number or the text of the response type, select from category, and then we can also use the search field up here. So I just simply type in fire. Any place it sees that word in the list, it will open up the particular categories and display those particular codes for you to select on the page. And if we just select it, and it should put it right in here. Let's go try that again. And I think I picked one of these. Interesting. Let me pick a different one. And it looks like we just discovered a bug. So we'll just go in and we'll just pick fire from this page. So if one of my coworkers want to jot that down, we need to look into that. That's in the exposure info response type field. The selection from the category is not working.
10 for Mark.
All right, thank you. Now within the system, these pages do not save until we select next, and our best advice is for you to select next and page your way through the incident. It puts it in a logical sequence, builds the incident report as we're going along, and it will match up with the validation rules or business rules, whatever you might want to refer them to, as we go in through the incident. Basically, we're going to build the incident report based on those rules that you need to fill out. When you select next, the system will save your data and go to the next page. So after we get off of that basic info 1 page, you're going to see that we have a series of modules that we build, and we use those validation or business rules to build this for you based upon those for Ontario. Every page is illustrated and lit up with a green light or red light. Now, if we have a green light here with a check mark in it, that means on that particular page, all of the required data is entered. Now, that doesn't mean it's correct. All it means it's required, it's filled in. That's what that review process is, and we'll go through that here in a little bit. On the basic info 2 page, which is our questionnaire, there's a couple items that were added to this recently, and one of which I will highlight now when I move my mouse over it, where there are vehicles involved. So in this particular incident, if there was, and this cuts back into the requirement and availability of some funding if you report these correctly, and we'll see this in just a little bit of all the information that you can put in for, let's say, a motor vehicle crash out on one of the provincial highways like the 401 or 402 highway. Now, in these, simply by default, these will be listed as no as the answer to these questions. However, when you select yes on them, they will open up additional modules when we save this page, or we select next and go to the next page. So let's go ahead and save the page, and you'll see that dynamic situation in action here. So since I've got yes to all of these, we've got civilian casualties, fire service casualties, our vehicle page, which is brand new, our people page, which is somewhat new, only a couple months old. And now you have the opportunity to put data into those fields based upon these answers here. I think we're going to just go ahead and leave all those open and page away through here. And I am going to select at random a incident location code, but I want somebody out there that's with us put in an address, a valid address in Ontario, into the chat, and I will go look at that. And it could be your home, it could be your fire station, it could be a business in your jurisdiction. If somebody would please do that, I'll grab the first one, put it in as a question, and I'll put that data in here. We want to verify that the mapping is working correctly. We have the mapping module hooked up here now. That is also a recent addition to the system. And don't be bashful. I'm not seeing any yet unless someone else sees them, and I'm not. Since I do not live in Ontario, I would rely upon somebody out there to please put in an address. Okay. Okay, Scott, appreciate that. So here's our address from Scott up in Brantford. Street or highway is Clarence Street. I want to make sure I spell it correctly. And that is in Brantford. And postal code. Please, Scott, throw me the postal code. And, okay, here we go. 3. Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Now, what we're going to do is this is kind of a real life test here. I'm going to make sure once before I do this. We're going to select view on map. And we're going to see that it obviously didn't because it dropped this pin into Kitchener. So I'm going to, should have put that in Brantford. I'm going to make sure everything is correct here. select that again. And we have a little issue with that today. I've done that a couple times and it worked just absolutely beautiful, where it did drop that pin exactly where it was. Now you can, if that doesn't drop the pin, now it's quite a ways from Kitchener to Brantford, I know that, you can enable the pin dragging and grab that and move it to the right location. A couple little tricks we have is you can zoom in on it, set the satellite view, and pretty much look at individual buildings out there on the map and drop it at the correct location. Now we were hoping that that was going to work correctly for you. However, it didn't. So we'll just run with it right from here and set that latitude and longitude directly from there. I recommend that you look at the incident on the map every time just to make sure it's locating it correctly. And obviously in this particular case, it did not. We have to do some experimenting with that to see what went wrong with that. Down here at the bottom of the basic info 3 page, if we have like at an intersection, we can put that information in, or we want to put directions to the incident there. If you have incident zones set up, you can select them from the zone list. And this happens to be a field that you can make a required field to require data to be put on there. These zones can be built in the admin module and are geographic zones as they may be represented in your particular community. Moving on to the property type, again, if we know what we're looking for here, we can just go ahead and start typing in some numbers, and if it finds a match out there, it will display them in the list. The more we type, the more the list is filtered. Then we can select it, or we can go ahead and use our category and bring it in that way off that category list as we tree down through there. That also has a filter. You can type in text, and when you find matches, it will display that, and you can pick right from it. It's a pretty slick little system there. The complex, that list is down here, and I think all the way at the bottom of this list. If it doesn't apply, you can select not applicable and throw it in. And again, when we get done with this page, we are going to select next, and you should see over here a corresponding green light for that particular page because we have all of the required information filled in. Again, on the basic info 4 page, if you're using a CAD link, there's a lot of information on this particular page that is filled in for you. A couple of them that typically are not is the alarm method to the fire department. So whichever that may apply from there, select it. Dispatch to scene distance. Now this is a change recently that we put in. I know this is a required field. This used to be required for every apparatus that you put into the apparatus list. However, now it's in one place at the top of the basic info 4 page. When you put in the kilometers into that particular field, you've met that requirement. Now in this particular field, you cannot put decimal places in it. It's looking for whole numbers only, which is a requirement for the province. Down below that, we have a couple of fields here. PSAP time, indicate what time the phone rang and the 911 phone rang in the public safety answering point, if it's applicable. What time your dispatcher is notified from that. A couple other fields. Since this was a fire type call in this particular case, we need to timestamp the date and time of the application of agent or decision to defer. Now in these particular fields, we're used to using the tab key to move from one field to the other. You saw that illustration maybe if I come up and highlight that again. That doesn't work in the format that these are all coded in. We have to use the arrow keys to jump over from one field to the next. So put in my data, arrow over, so my seconds in. When I use the tab key, no matter where I am in that field, it will just bump me to the next field. So we're going to select today for that. When was the fire controlled? In this particular case, we'll just put in arrow 00. If we select today or yesterday, it does pre-fill the date. Okay, for our personnel and our apparatus, if we have personnel that came in on a particular call, if you're a volunteer-based organization, you may have people that respond in and they don't go on the apparatus. We can pick them off of this list to include them. However, they did not respond out to the incident on an apparatus. Section down below here is adding an apparatus. We'll select add apparatus. We'll pick one of them from the list that I have in the system. These are all built in the admin section. The type 11, this is a holdover for the MFERS system. We have to have an apparatus type that ties all the apparatus together with incidents and the maintenance module. You've got a list of uses. This is also brought over from the MFERS use as suppression, EMS, or other. Response mode, whether we travel to the incident non-emergent or emergent, or we upgraded or downgraded. Now we can also indicate the apparatus was canceled if it did not make it to the scene. In this particular case, we're not going to do that. Now we have some pre-fill times that we can do. So for today, select that, and I'll put in an alarm time. I'll just put in like 0800. And when we fill those dates and times, you'll see them go down below, just like that. Now I would have to do is to edit them a little bit using my arrow keys, and then jumping down here, indicating my route time. And I'm shortcutting this, not putting the seconds in. My arrival time, if I was canceled, this would be appropriate to fill that in, and I should be able to, if we can see that field and the checkbox, the arrived date, there's now no requirement to put data into that field, but we do have the requirement now down for canceled. So it is interactive with this checkbox up here for you. And we do have some patient times in here. Since those aren't required, we're simply going to select the X out to the right and remove those and put in our cleared scene date and time. And if it's important to you, your in quarters and in service date. If not, just select the X out here and those times will go away. And now for our personnel, there's a couple ways that we can do this. First of all, if you simply just want to record that we have 4 personnel on the apparatus, that's all it takes is entering that number into that field. Otherwise, I'm going to take that out right now. We can indicate specific personnel that went on the call. Now we have filters available on here, so you can use those to filter out by part of the text of a name, for example. Also by shift, so maybe we had a B shift involved, and also let me remove that. You can put in part of the text of your station names, and you can filter that way to help you find those personnel on that list. And we'll go ahead and select them. Another feature we do have in here is that we can put in roles, which would indicate to us what did the individual do at that incident. This is also brought over from our MFERS side of our system, and there's a number of roles, things that people can do at an incident, like one of which is to operate apparatus or vehicle, which is pretty important. In my department, that was important to know who was driving for a few different reasons. And also one thing we can do for that is put in, like if I typed in see that, we'll get down here to 80 something is my incident commander who was in charge of the incident. This is another thing that we always look for as well. So we get our personnel on here, and we've got everything correct. We'll scroll either down to the bottom or up to the top right corner and select next, and hopefully we get a green light here. And it looks like I've got some kind of issue with my particular call with this rig, and I must have missed something going down through the list. Aha. Oh, as you can see, what I did was typed in a time that was incorrect. The system knows these times have to be in sequence from the earliest time to the latest time. It didn't like that whatsoever, so we'll go in and fix that. And now we will select next. And as you can see, we've got a green light up here, and for my individual apparatus down here, I've got a green light. additional apparatus go on the call, select add apparatus and drop them in and get your green lights on all of them, and you're good to go with that particular page. And we will go on next to the basic info 5 page. On this particular page, a recent update, and I don't even know if it is out there. We do have this deployed. This was, I believe, in a daily deploy we did just a couple weeks ago, or a couple days ago, actually. These were in groups, and we failed to hit that mark. So now we've updated these. So your total value at risk fields are grouped, as you see there, and that comes from the information that we received. And your estimated loss, if you have no loss, check that box. If you have something typed in, it will disappear. Insurance estimate. Do we have insurance? No, not applicable or undetermined may be the answer for that. And neighboring agencies. This is useful to note agencies that assisted you at your incident. Simply check mark those. This list could have 1 or 20 different agencies in it. Another building, a list that you build and customize to your particular account in the administration module. And we're going to go select next. And in our particular case, we're going to go to the fire page. So fire details, status on arrival. Again, this is where we have that coding list. And this is a smaller list, so we don't have the ability to select it from a category. Pick the appropriate selection here. Water, did we have hydrants within so many meters of the install? Did we need to use a tanker shuttle service? Our fire control, did we put it out? Was it put out by an extinguishing system? Did it self-extinguish or something unclassified there? We're going to indicate that we put it out by the fire department. So again, some of the coding lists, as we drop down through here, we're just going to pick some data from the category list. As you can see, it works exactly the same way. If we use that search field and type in like hall for hallway corridor, it'll filter that list. A very useful tool for you to get these done pretty quick. The ignition source, if you know the code number is illustrated here, you can type it in and that list will filter out for you, make a selection pretty easy to achieve. Fuel or energy source, kind of a shorter list, so we don't have the selection category, but we can start inputting part of the text, such as ethanol, object material first ignited. Again, kind of a more lengthy list, so we have the category system built. Just picking some things at random here to speed this up a little bit. Probable cause. Maybe this was unintentional. We feel it was some kind of design installation deficiency. Were there vehicles involved? These are non-required. This is not the vehicle page. We'll get to that in just a minute. And we've got several selections on here. Again, a smaller list, so it is pretty short and sweet to pick from. Our emergency response with some persons rescued in physical conditions. So did we have any? Requires a whole number. If we don't have any, we put in a 0 to meet that requirement. We'll just zero these out as we're going down through here. And our physical condition. So if we select with the mouse click in that field, we have several physical conditions for persons rescued. In this case, we're going to mark not applicable, no persons rescued. And you can pick 3 of these, as you can see what I'm doing here. Civilian actions, if we had a civilian fire control. So if they had attempted to extinguish the fire before arrival of the fire department. And again, just to remind you, these are coding lists that we received. And then we put in that information. And this particular case, for my reasons for not evacuating, let's just put undetermined in on that one, and we can select up to 2 reasons. Person directly associated with ignition. So if we know the age, we can type it in. If we don't know it, or it may be not applicable in this particular case, or gender, we'll select not applicable, and you can see our requirement goes away. The key factor in this case will be not applicable. Other agencies contacted. This would be a list that we've been given to put in here, such as the OPP, maybe the Electrical Safety Authority, Canadian Transport Emergency Center, whatever may apply to it, and you can select one or more of these in here. That is the conclusion of that page. Let's go on to the next page, and this will be our structure fire page. So on this page, again, some coding lists that you're probably familiar with. And some of these on this page are fairly short, so we don't have to select by category. Extent of the fire, confined to the object of origin or part of a room or area. We'll pick that one. Smoke spread. How far and wide did the smoke spread from the incident? Our building information, estimated number of persons displaced. Got to be a whole number. Business impact. No business interruption up to the bottom of the list is undetermined. Not applicable for not a business. May not resume operations, whatever the correct selection is. We'll put it in here. Our occupancy status. Do we have, was it a permanent use building with persons present, no persons present? Seasonal use. Illegally occupied, not applicable or undetermined, whatever again is appropriate. Just make that selection with a good old mouse click. Occupancy type. Student renters only, perhaps in this case. Building status. Normal, no change, under renovation. Construction, under demolition. We're going to select the normal in this particular case. Do we have any illegal building use going on here? Specifically, marijuana grow operation, meth lab, crack house, drug den, other, or in this case, we're going to select not applicable. The age of the structure, and in here we do have some groupings. So if we had an older building, I take offense to this, constructed between 1946 and 1970, and it's old. And my coworkers will know what I'm talking about there. The building height and stories. We're going to simply enter one, whole numbers again. The level of fire origin, at or above grade, below grade, or other. And when we select below grade, you can see it puts in 1. We can't actually change that. If you have a building that has several subfloors underneath it, you can select that. And we're going to put at or above grade in there. Now our smoke alarm. Do we have smoke alarms on the floor or in suite of fire origin? In this particular case, we're going to go straight down to no smoke alarm, which is at the top of that list. Now you'll see in this particular case, when I said we have no smoke alarms and made that selection, it pre-filled this not applicable. Now, not in all cases do we have those pre-filled. However, in some we do, which will help you out. And it would make sense to me if we don't have any smoke alarms that this should pre-fill also to not applicable. We've talked to our dev team, and they're going to come through this at some point, and it's what we call in some part of the hardening process to make sure that all those are selected correctly. Do we have any smoke alarms on other floors? Since we have a single story building, we don't have any other floors. Not applicable, single level. Alarm on every level, and it would be no alarms not present on every story. The next section down here is our impact of alarm operation on persons at risk of injury. And again, we have a coding list. All persons, some persons, no one at risk, alarm operated but failed to alert occupants, and so forth. Again, another standard coding list. And the number evacuated. If we hit the drop down arrow, that'll pre-fill to 0. And if we go up, it'll put that count to numbers going from 1 up to whatever. Fire alarm system. Do we have a fire alarm system or not? Simple selections here. Did it operate or not? And this is one of those cases. So if we would mark that as no fire alarm system, they're going to eventually tie this in with that selection. In this case, not applicable, no system to pre-fill that. And it would do the same thing down here with that selection. This is part of the hardening process that we hope to get accomplished more sooner than later. And then our last coding field on this particular page is our sprinkler system. Do we have a sprinkler system present or not? Make this correct selection. In this particular case, it's another one that we're going to hopefully get that to pre-select that if you select it. We don't have a sprinkler system in it. Let's scroll back up to the top of the page, and we're making some pretty good headway on this. I just want to show you, I'm not going to take a lot of time to fill this in, but for a casualty, to add the casualty, we've got the button up in the upper right corner to add a casualty, and we have this particular page that we need to fill in. And this should be a standard coding field that you may be familiar with. And I'm going to go back to Basic Info 2 in a moment and turn these off. We're not going to really talk about them except for mentioning that when we add these casualties. Now this page for this should be our fire service casualty page. Here we go. It's very, very similar. And one of the other differences is our clothing or equipment that we have to mark what clothing or equipment that they had on them as their PPE. So what I'm going to do, just to save a little bit of time, because that's not going to be our focus on this, we're going to go back to the Basic Info 2 page, and also to illustrate you that you can navigate by the little light bars, buttons. However, just make sure you save your data before you do that. So I've turned both of those off, and you'll see those pages go away. And we're going to jump straight to the vehicles page. Since on the Basic Info 2 page, we indicated we had a vehicle. This page is brand new. We'll add a vehicle to it. You can see the different coding fields available on it: make, type, model, year, license plate number, VIN number, color, vehicle or owner information, addresses, the driver information. And what I should do is start putting a little bit of information into here. And we're not going to fill in all of the information here, just a little bit. I do want to show you a feature that we have with this. Addressing information for that owner is are they a resident? And is the vehicle owner and driver the same? You can see any of that information posted for the owner will come down into this field. Some of the important stuff down here: insurance company name, policy number, coverage level, information as it applies, and you can acquire it. Law enforcement info. So we're at a traffic crash, for example. Who was the officer making the report? File number, report number. How many occupants in the vehicle did we have? How many were injured? Number of fatalities. And any disposable equipment that we used. And if you have spell check turned on in your browser, we will give you an indication when you misspelled a word. And now the next page off of that for the vehicle, since I put that information, is we give you a narrative page. Capture any data that you may have on that. And we will go ahead and select next, and we're going to jump over to the people page. And we can add additional vehicles to this incident report if we need to. As you can see, we can keep adding them, and they'll be on the list. The people involved. So these would be persons that own the property, specifically at like a building fire or whatnot. They're the property owner. If you don't check that, what was their involvement? Like a manager of the building, we can enter their name. date of birth. No fields in here are exactly required, but fill them in as appropriate for the incident. Now, if their home address is the same as the incident, if we select that box, it will bring in the incident address into this page. And we get that all done, we'll select next, and we will be out on the people page, and we can add additional persons to the people page. The next page we're going to get to is the narrative. In the narrative, looks a little bit different to me, but it's very simple here. We can add a narrative to this. Now, there are some settings available in the administration module to require an incident narrative. You can see my name populates here as the author of this, as I am logged in. The title of it is optional, but you can title it, such as if your fire marshal is doing an investigation. This could be the investigation narrative. You can tie it to an apparatus, also optional. And then the actual narrative. Then we often get a question, do we have a pre-built narrative so I can make a selection and just dump it in here? And the answer is no. We hesitate from doing that for a few different reasons. Basically, if your incident goes to a court of law, most decent attorneys can pick apart a pre-built narrative in a heartbeat. Ones that you have pre-built, and then you just fill in a few blanks in it. So we're helping protect you a little bit with this. So we get that narrative done. We'll select done. It's on this page, and you can create additional narratives just by selecting the add narrative button and keep on throwing them in there. Our files page is where we're going next. And in this particular case, we're going to go select some files out here. So we're going to select up the top, select files, and we're going to go out, and I have some demo documents in here, some photographs that we're going to put in. So if you're taking some photographs at the incident, you have a, let's say a drawing, a sketch of the site, you can put that in here. A PDF document is probably the best example of doing that, and load them up, and you'll see the name of them over here on the left. You can enter a description of it. Now, if we select any of these, you will be able to see the actual document that we put in. This just happens to be a exit door blocked as a code violation. There's no restriction on the number of files that you put in here. I was just working earlier today with the department in the state of Illinois that did a investigation, and they probably had 60 photographs of an incident scene in their incident report. The next module that we're getting to is the time tracking. So if in your agency you have the need to pay people either hours or points, we can hook them up with the default pay grade if that's necessary. And this particular account, most of those people are, except for me. Now, if we have time that we put in, a department in Ontario I was working with a little bit ago, I'm going to pay all these people. So now, since I selected all of them, I'm going to put in, they have a 3-hour minimum for their paid per call personnel. So even though this call lasted only 20 minutes, they get 3 hours of pay. So that would be the proper entry for that. You can, if it works out that the call lasted 3.5 hours, you can put decimal points in. Also with points, if your department issues points for attendance incidents, you can put them in. And you have this bulk fill option, and we can throw that information down here. Now, if in this particular case, let's say maybe some of these people were career people on duty and they don't get these extra hours or points, you can come down here after you do a bulk fill and zero them out. And we're just going to take that off of there for me. And this is acting somewhat odd. I can't put a 0 in here. Can somebody write that up, please? And my hours and points, I have to put a number in here. I cannot put a 0. Let me do a little bit of experimentation real quick. And it does not like anything but the first hour to be a whole number too. And let's go ahead and fill them again. And we'll get that fixed. That's an important thing for you guys that are using the time tracking in an incident. Now, when we get done with this, we'll select next, and at the authorize button, I don't have any fields in here now. I should have showed you this before, but if we have fields throughout the incident report that are required that you don't have data in, they will appear on this page until you get them all completed and you get all the red lights gone away from. So now with this particular incident report, we're going to set it to complete status. In some cases, you may have complete and review privileges. In this case, we're just going to step through it as in to complete it. So we're going to have to authorize it by entering our password. I'll go out in my password logger and grab that and set it to complete status. And as you can see there, the light changed from red to yellow, which means it is in complete status. I'm going to show you another new feature that we have available on this page. Maybe this one has not been pushed out yet, but we will have very soon the ability to merge a manually created incident report to a CAD created call. So if you need to start your data collection, you can go ahead and do that and then merge your CAD call data into it. There'll be a button at the top of this page to do so. Now, since it's a fire incident, if we have the fire spreading to adjacent buildings and that, we have the add exposure button, and that will only appear for fire type incidents. When we select that, it will create an exposure. So our incident number, which will starts out with 1, it will add an exposure number to that, and we'll be able to fill out this incident report as required. That's the add exposure button here. Let's go take a look at the history details. As your folks are putting in incident reports, we're pretty much taking a tracking of what pages they're touching within the incident report. This may not tell you exactly what they did on a page, but it'll tell you what page they accessed with the date and time, what page it was, who it was, and what IP address that they're at as we go through this incident report. Now, you have to have the ability to review incidents to be able to see that data. We have the ability to print the information. So we have the print page. So on this particular case, we're going to print everything, including our vehicle page. This vehicle print page is new, and we're going to include time tracking. Let's put time tracking up here and print this out. The print process will throw this out on another tab, and in this case, this is creating a PDF document. And this is our print page for this particular incident. All the information that we inputted. And one of my coworkers just sent me a message about the time tracking while I was having that issue, which we'll cover in a minute. Thank you, Greg. I did not know that. So here's our vehicle information, vehicle number 1, and all that information that we inputted is displayed there. My different pages, my fire page, structure fire page, and all of the coding information that we put in, and my documents that I've added to it, one of which was a PDF document, and my personnel list. Member making report would be my name, whoever's logged in, and this is actually captured when you save the first page. And then after it's reviewed, whoever that individual is will be listed here at that particular point. So typically that's the process that we'll use to review an incident. I think it works the best is to print the incident out, select all the pages, print them out, take a look at them. Now, if we find a mistake on the pages, we can select this mark incomplete. What it does is sets this to incomplete status. And then typically we'll be able to send an email out to our folks. And I do not know if that's hooked up in Ontario incidents. Maybe if one of my coworkers out there knows that there is a option to send them a message in the admin module for the options for incidents. that we'll take a look at that here in a little
Mark,
bit.
I don't think that's hooked up yet, but it's something they're working on.
Okay, so that must be one of the items that's still in the queue to be done.
Correct. Yep, you got it.
Perfect. Got a few things just to mention with that. Thanks, Tom. Some enhancements to the advanced search that they're going to be working on, merging CAD calls into your incident, and the ability to send them an email. Basically, if we found a mistake or lack of data into it, when we mark this incomplete, the process would be we have an option to send them an email, and then we have the ability to send them a nice little message along with that email telling them what we need them to do with that. So obviously a couple things that we're still working on with this. It's been a long process, but we're getting pretty close to being there with that. So with that information, I'm looking at the page out here for our questions, and I'm not seeing any. So you guys are being way too easy on me. If you have any, go ahead and post them in, because we are wrapping up. We're right at about an hour right now. One thing I did tell you we were going to do is look at the permissions for incidents in the admin module. Some of you may not have seen these. So we will go to admin and down to security section, down in this area to security rules and permissions. And in security rules and permissions, we'll select the memo pad edit for this particular permission, then jump into the actual granular permissions. Now for international incidents, you have 19 items to select from here. So we can get into some pretty fine detail of what your personnel can and cannot do within an incident. Now, I spent 14 years as a fire chief, and one of the things that I recommend everybody takes a look at is this one. In this particular case right here, it's my ability, or the ability of people in this role, to be able to delete an incident. I think in this case, most people, I would think, you don't want to be able to delete an incident. Just your upper admin level folks should be able to do that. And here are a couple interesting ones I like that we added to this, is the ability to upload and download files, and also to delete files in that particular files module. That may be something you want to control a little bit. So create and edit incidents is the first one at the top. That's assigned. So if it's assigned to you, can you create and edit the incident? Or you can also give some folks the permissions to edit incidents. We have the same options for completing them, ones that are assigned to me, for example, or can I do those and all the other ones? Same thing with review incidents. That's the third level of the incidents, as you remember. Another granular one, unlock a reviewed incident. So if it's been reviewed, we may want to restrict who can unlock that particular one. This is an important one. We have the ability to export and import incidents. And when you unlock them, if they'll be subjected to today's validation criteria, which may be the same as they were created, which can solve some problems or create problems for you. So that's another one you may want to particularly pay attention to. We already talked about deleting, being able to print an incident, view the history details. Can we assign it to another user or not? And we have the file, upload, download, and delete. How do we treat the narratives? Can we delete them? Just mine? All of them? Can we add them? So again, 19 incremental permissions and incidents. This is a huge step forward that we have that kind of capability in here. And we worked on that. So that's a significant amount of time talking this over, hashing this out, what would work and what wouldn't work. And we came up with this list, and I think it works pretty good. So with that, we have pretty much expired the time that we allotted for this. We'll give everybody that's with us out there today a chance to put in a question, and no one has as of yet. So either I'm doing a really good job or you guys just being a little quiet today. Go back out here to the grid.
Hey, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Hey, if you can go back into your incident, I see Chief Richardson from Mapleton Township is still on with us, and that's where I got that information regarding the time tracking.
Okay.
He was having issues. It wasn't for him. It wasn't actually saving decimal point for hours. And so when I submitted the request, that was the information I got back regarding, he was trying to change one of his personnel to a time other than, everybody else that was on the scene, because that person, and then we also realized it wasn't saving decimal points. So if you could try to work through what that message was, and I actually got that from Lindsay, so.
Okay, if you make a change to the time, you will need to save and then refresh. See, the system removed the pay grade. Yeah, see, I updated that pay grade. The only one that was missing was for mine before. So we did save the page and we refreshed it because I went out all the way out of the incident. So one of the fixes here, what we need to remind everybody to do is, even if you don't pay your people, but you want to award points, you have to have a pay grade in for incidents. In the admin module for personnel, it's called the work pay grade, and the default $0 will work for that. Or if you need to put in an hourly rate, you can do that as well. So that's basically the long short of that. So maybe it's a bug that they are aware of and working on fixing at this time. So that's basically what we have for the presentation. No questions are coming in. I appreciate everybody that attended today, and also all my coworkers that came on to help us out with this. We're still kind of in the infancy stages of learning ourselves. This is a relatively new product of ours, Ontario Incidents. I've worked in it quite a bit because I do train our international customers for the most part, and worked with quite a handful of Canadian customers already, such as up in Kitchener, Gulf, and Brantford, and Maple Township. I think I work with them a little bit too. And we have some others coming online. It's kind of exciting, our expansion into Ontario.
Hey, Mark, I did get a private chat message from Chief Richardson. Is there a method of letting firefighters see the incident details without changing anything? So can they just view it?
Can they view it? Let's go back to permission. That's a good
View
question.
the details and not actually be able to change anything.
I think that
Some pretty granular permissions, I noticed. So.
Okay, so here's what we can do now. My short answer here is going to be no, because as you can see, for international incidents, the read-only selection for here, which would have allowed that, is gone. That's what these selections are in the middle of these different granular permissions, is read-only, which allows you to look at the data, but you cannot add, edit, delete. Now for international incidents, I'm going to take a quick scan down the list here, and there is basically no selection here that would allow someone to look at an incident report. Oh yeah, there is right here, boom, buried right here in the middle. So basically what you would have to do, Chief, is if for those personnel, if they're at selected no access, so they can't even get to the incident module, you'll have to give them full access and then subtract every one of these, and multiples of these may come over. But the one we're looking for here is to give them access to view and print an incident. And I am not logged in this particular group, so this will not work for me. However, it's right in the middle of the list, view, print, incident. And if we give them that, they'll be able to look at it, but not change it. And I don't know who I have in that. We got good old Wayne Gretzky in that particular group.
He says, thanks, Mark.
Okay, I am logged in as a primary administrator, which gives me access to everything. And I don't think I have a secondary login for this particular account that I can test that on real quick for you. All right, nothing else coming in. So we're going to go ahead and put this one in the record book. Again, I thank everybody for attending, and again, thank my co-workers for being on board with this. We will be actually, I'll give you this note too. We will be creating a section in the Canada knowledge base section for our Canadian specific virtual Thursday webinars that we'll be parking these in. So the ones that we specifically do for you folks, that's where we're going to park them. This recording will be put in there sometime in the next couple of days. So if you need to refer back to it, you can. And thanks again to everybody for attending. And we are going to go ahead and terminate the session. So thanks again for attending. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time around. Have a good one.